Definitely. Okay, so my name is Sonia Marushka, and I'm a sophomore at Bennett. And I want to thank you so much for taking time of your day to speak with me. Would you please provide your name and some of your background information about your education and career?
Sure, yeah. So as you know, my name is Courtney Leimkuhler. My education and career, I grew up outside Philadelphia, went to a school called Agnes Irwin, which was an all-girls school. Went to Harvard for college, also went to Harvard Business School a little bit later than that. Started my career at Goldman Sachs. I was there for 3 years and left there to go to the New York Stock Exchange. Was there for about 10 years. Did a job called Strategy and M&A, which really had to do with thinking about the long-term business strategy of the exchange, and also thinking about other companies we should buy or new businesses we should build. And then I spent 4 years working at Marsh, which is how I met your dad. And there I was the chief financial officer. Had a few other jobs along the way.
Okay, great. So now I was wondering if I could ask you some questions about business ethics and how they've helped you answer questions or make decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so my first question is, do you have a set of ethical principles that you use when faced with difficult questions or situations in your career?
I'm sure I do. I don't sort of carry them around in my pocket. Maybe some people do, which would be a good thing. But yeah, sure. I have some basic principles. I think one of them is really just to remember that life is long, and every interaction sort of builds your reputation, and you're very likely to continue to meet the same people over and over again in your life. And almost everyone you interact with knows someone else who knows you, and so there's really no free pass in terms of the decisions you make and your behavior. It all counts in your kind of reputation context and building. So just remembering that is obviously pretty important. And then I think recognizing that your reputation is very powerful. It's one of the most powerful tools that you can have is a good reputation for being honest, hardworking, whatever it is. But as powerful as your reputation is, it is also incredibly fragile. And those two things go together in a difficult way, right? So, one slip up, one bad decision, and your reputation, however powerful it is, can be destroyed. And so recognizing that, in every decision, especially the hard ones, a lot is on the line every time, frankly. And then, I think part of what I have developed in my reputation, and I would sort of offer it to others, is sort of nothing more powerful than being known for being a sort of straight shooter, just sort of telling it like it is. And I think that's something that to me has always been really important. I try to just deal very openly and honestly and give my rationale for doing things in a professional and personal context. I think those things are really important. I remember when I started at Goldman, they said, you're representing the firm, not just when you're at work, but on the weekends and when you go out. This is, if it's not something you don't want to read about in the Wall Street Journal, you probably shouldn't do it. And I think that's, it's good advice in general. There's really no such thing as kind of getting away with anything.
Right. My second question is, would you be able to provide an example of a situation in your business in which you applied these principles?
Every day. I think the newspapers like to kind of have a big story about someone who defrauded, a company. And obviously those things happen. But the reality is there are ethical decisions every single day about how you treat someone in a meeting, about what business deal you sign, about how you negotiate a transaction, about whether you hire or fire someone, about whether you promote someone, about how you think about allocating bonuses, about every decision, as a CFO. There's a lot of accounting decisions and it's not black and white. So these things come up over and over and over again. And I think it's a mistake to think that once in a while you will be confronted with a big, difficult decision. The reality is ethical behavior and your reputation, frankly, are built every single day, all of these small decisions and sort of the way that you behave and the way you treat people. That's where the kind of crux of ethics to me kind of sits. And I think that's why, as you said, you've gotten good advice when you're interviewing for a firm. It's, you don't have to wait until there's a big crisis. You can often tell about someone's reputation and what decision they might make in a really challenging ethical situation, just based on the way they behave when they meet you, how they treat people when they go to the cafeteria with you for lunch. And so I think it's just really important to think about the day-to-day decision making.
My next question is, do you think that any particular business question, decision, or situation represents a difficult ethical issue?
Look, I think it's exactly what we're seeing right now, which is how do a lot of the sort of social injustices that manifest themselves in our society also show up in our workplaces. And I think we're really kidding ourselves if we don't think that structural racism and sexism are not deeply embedded in the way we run our businesses, the way we pick our clients, the way we do promotions, the way we recruit, everything, literally everything. So I think that that's probably one of the most pressing issues right now, frankly, is thinking about what is the role of business and corporations and the leadership of those corporations and shareholders. What are their obligations to dismantle structural racism and sexism in ways that we really haven't had a lot of urgency around yet.
My final question is, do you have any advice that you could provide for me as I think about ethical issues that I may face as a young woman who one day pursue a career?
I don't think it's any different from everything I've told you. I think it's focusing on the everyday behaviors. I remember I was a really young kid. I was probably in my second year of working, and I was with my boss in Washington, D.C., and we were meeting with the SEC, the Securities Exchange Commission. And we came out of there and we were taking the train back to New York, and it was pouring rain, absolutely pouring rain. And we did not have very far to go, but we weren't going to walk there. We had luggage and everything. And we managed to hail a taxi, which this is in the days before Uber. So it's a miracle to get a taxi in the pouring rain. And we jumped in and we went to the train station, and the fare was like $6 or something like that. It was really cheap. And my boss gave the taxi driver $20 and just said, keep it. And he said to the taxi driver, you were there when we needed you. And like no one was watching. He didn't get a receipt for it. He didn't try to put in a T&E expense for $20. I mean, he didn't get any receipt at all. It was just like the right thing to do. And so I think as you think about sort of your career, finding people who are just doing the right thing in their personal life, in their professional life, in their day-to-day interactions, like those are the people you want to kind of get behind and follow. Those are the people who are going to do the right thing, make the hard decisions. They're probably going to back you. And so I think that, that's my advice. If you see that someone is doing something wrong, you've got to trust your gut. I think you have to really go into it understanding that there is the substance of learning from a business perspective. You need to learn the business of the company. You need to learn how to work. But just because you are young and junior, you should not ignore your kind of own moral compass, right? And I think a lot of people get into trouble because they're in a mode of learning, an apprenticeship, and they behave the way other people around them behave, and they think, I guess that's how we do things around here, right? And that's how things like Wells Fargo, their whole, huge fraud around customer account openings, that's how it happens, because people forget their own sense of morality and ethics, and they just look and say, I do everything else the way this person does it, right? I do my Excel spreadsheets the way she does. I do my customer meetings the way she does. I leave voicemails the way she does. So I guess I falsify accounts the way she does, right? And I think it's important as you're a young person to remember that there are certain things which surely need to be kind of learned behaviors in the workplace, but it doesn't mean that you check your own kind of standards and sort of moral framework at the door.
Definitely. Okay, well, thank you so much. This has been so helpful.
Awesome. Well, really